Hello and welcome to video number 1. This is the introduction to hybrid video sales letters. And first things first, I want to make a statement here. And some of you may agree, some of you may disagree. I want to say that standard video text only sales letters still work. They still work today, but because people are, they're seeing it over and over and over again, a lot of people have gotten used to it. They still convert. The only real way of knowing whether or not they're going to convert for you is by testing it. Now, if you're selling something where somebody needs to visually see it, such as a video course, they might want to see a video, for example, before they actually buy it, or a piece of software, or something that they need to visually see. If it's only text and you're talking to an audience that, are kinesthetic in their visual, you're going to lose sales because a kinesthetic or a visual type person needs to see it. An auditory person might be able to see the textual sales letter and be okay. So you got to realize there are auditory, there are kinesthetic, people who are hands-on, and people who are visual. So a lot of times people forget about the kinesthetic and visual type people. And if your market is filled with tons of kinesthetic and tons of visual people, and you're only using a text sales letter, that can be a problem. So obviously different markets can be different, but while this could be debated, this course has been created from actual testing of what has worked well for us. And by stating the fact that there are 3 different and many different types of learning styles, if you can create a video sales letter or a smart video sales letter that mixes up text, screen capture, and different types of mediums that I'll explain later down the road, you'll be able to increase your sales conversions because you'll keep it interesting, you'll keep it engaging, you'll address what needs to be addressed, and you'll increase your conversions. So the hybrid removes skepticism, which is more and more common nowadays. More people are skeptical, so it's a lot harder to sell to them. So you really need to take advantage of all the technologies that are available to you and stay ahead of the game. So what I want to do now is to give you a quick videos overview so you know exactly what to expect in this video series and how everything is laid out. So video number 1 is of course this video. Video number 2 is who is your audience, and that video is going to show you how to figure out exactly the demographics of your audience. Now, there are many different tools out there that you can use. I am going to stick with 3 different tools that I personally have used over and over and over again. I'll show you what my favorite tools are and why, and which tools give you certain types of data so that you're able to see exactly who that person is. Their pains, their purchasing behaviors, who they are, and more. So more than just demographics, we're really digging deep, trying to figure out exactly who you're talking to, because if you can figure that out, then creating the video sales letter is just going to be so much easier. Video number 3 is what is your audience's pain? You need to figure this out because this is going to be the main points of your video sales letter, especially in the beginning. Video number 4 is common buyer objections and resistance. Now, while this is general, a lot of times it can be specific depending on what you're trying to sell. Now, I am going to cover this because I want you to know the most common buyer objections so that you can integrate it throughout your video sales letter. And of course, we got video number 5, which is the video sales letter formula. And 5, 6, and 7 is going to be the formula. So I'll walk you through step by step so you can pretty much follow along the template. And video number 6, we're going to cover the formula in relation to answering the big question, what's in it for me, or why should I believe in you? And of course, video number 7 is your pitch. Of course, you're selling, you're trying to get them to take action, your guarantee, and so forth. And video number 8 is how do you tie technology in all of this? How do you increase your conversions by using technology? And of course, video number 9, I'm going to talk about text versus screen capture. There's a time to use text only, and there's a time to use screen capture. My take on that is I would mix it together. Keep it interesting. Kind of like these videos where I'm going over the conceptual, the fundamentals with PowerPoint slides, and then when I actually show you how to do stuff, I use screen capture. So what I found over the years is by mixing those two, that actually helps. But I'm going to tell you exactly when you should do it so that you can actually go about doing that when you need to do it. So here's how it works. Instead of following a template, first you're going to understand your audience very, very, very well first. Then you're going to write out your sales letter, which then of course you can follow the template. Then you're going to apply new technologies to your video sales letter, which I'll explain in a lot more detail later down the road. So with that said, let's jump on over to video number 2. And I'm going to show you exactly how to figure out who you are selling to. Welcome back. This is video number 2, who is your audience? So in this video, I'm going to help you figure out exactly who is your audience, the exact demographics of the person that you're trying to reach, because this is actually very crucial. You don't want to skip this step. I know you're probably excited to jump ahead, but this is the biggest mistake that a lot of people make, is by skipping this. You might have a general idea of who you're talking to, but unless you really know exactly if it's a male, if it's a female, what age group they are, stuff like that, unless you actually have that in hand, then you might be too general when it comes to your video sales letter. So we want to avoid that. We want to be as specific as we can. So I'm going to move on to my computer, and I'm going to show you exactly what tools to use and how to go about doing this. Now, before we talk about tools, the first thing that you want to figure out is, what are you selling? And then you want to go to google.com. You want to type in that keyword or keyword phrase. You want to try to be as general as possible in this case. So let's say, for example, that I want to sell greenhouse kits. Now, if you're not aware of what greenhouse kits are, it basically allows people to buy these kits. It's kind of a do-it-yourself thing, and they can set it up in their backyard, and they can grow tomatoes, grow veggies, grow fruits and flowers, and so forth. So I type that in here, and the reason why I type that in here is because I'm trying to figure out, in relation to greenhouse kits or whatever niche or market that you want, what are the top websites? So these are the top websites. Now I'm going to keep this open for just a minute, and generally what I try to do is I pick some website that actually relates to the niche or the market. So obviously HomeDepot.com is not going to be what I'm trying to target, because Home Depot has just about everything. I want something very, very specific. So Amazon is a big store with a bunch of stuff. It's not a very specific website. So for example, greenhousemegastore.com, this site mainly sells greenhouses and stuff that relates to greenhouses. So what I do is I head on over to quantcast.com and I type in the URL right here. Now, Quantcast is free, but in my experience, I found that Quantcast doesn't always have all the data that I'm looking for. It's very limited in my opinion. But sometimes if you type it in, they will have the information. Like so for example, I typed in greenhouse megastore and I click on this. And as you can see, it doesn't really have the demographic data. This is more or less good to look at it and say, okay, is there actually traffic in the market? As you can see here, is it a steady amount of traffic, or is it just all the way down and then all the way up and so forth? So I can see that there's about steady amount of traffic, meaning over time it's consistent in terms of a person's interest in this topic. Now, like I said, Quadcast is a little bit limited, but if we type in greenhouse, let's see what we can find here. So greenhousemag.com. Yeah, so it doesn't really provide as much demographics. The two tools that I really like to use is Facebook Audience Insights and Alexa.com. Alexa.com, now they do charge for you to use it, but in my opinion, it's probably be the best tool that I've used, just because the amount of data that they have. Now, that's why I say try out Quadcast.com first, and if you don't really see anything, move on to the next thing. And the next thing is to try out Facebook Audience Insights. The way that you get to the site is by going to www.facebook.com/ads/audience_insights. If you need to pause this video so you can type that in, go ahead and do that now. And when you go to the site, this is what you're going to see. So you obviously need to have a Facebook account. So you log into your Facebook account, and this right here is what you see. I absolutely love this tool. It's very specific. It's more specific than Alexa, and it's free. But in my opinion, Alexa and this tool are good. This tool allows you to see a broader view of a lot of people on Facebook who like a specific area. So I'm going to walk you through right now. If you go here, you can choose at the top a location. So I can choose United States. I can choose other countries like United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, or whatever that you want to choose. You just enter that here. Now, generally speaking, I like to stick with one country so that I can analyze it. And then what I'll do after I analyze it is I'll move to, let's say, for example, United Kingdom. And I'll try to see if there's a pattern, meaning if the percentages are similar, if it's women or more men, then I'm going to try to see if it's more men or more women consistently throughout the different countries. Because if it's more consistently, then it's going to be easier to gauge. So in this case, all I do is go to interest right here. I don't really, not really concerned about the other things right now. I'm going to type in greenhouse. I don't know if they have kits. I don't think so. But greenhouses, that's fine. So we're going to enter that here. And there we go. So as you can see here, age and gender, we can see about 71% women and 29% men. So obviously there's a big leaning towards women that are interested in greenhouses and greenhouse kits. So that's kind of a general overview as of now. But as you can see on Facebook, 54% are all on Facebook, and then 46% are on men. So it's kind of very similar. But from what I see, the majority is about 71% women. Now, if you scroll to the right here, you can see out of the women or out of the men, what is the age group that is most popular, or the age group that is more, leaning towards the interest of greenhouse. So from what I see, the majority happens to be this one, and this one. This is 19%, so it's obviously lower. So we got 24%, 23%, and 20%. So I'm going to jot that down. So 35, 44, 45, 54, 55, and then 64. So I'm going to open up Notepad here, and I'm just going to jot this down. Female. So we got 35 to 44, 45 to 54, and 55 to 64. So that's females. And females is 71%. Now, because his males are a lot lower in percentage, I'm not going to jot that down as of now. Now, you can obviously click on one of these if you would like to hone in on that specific age group. I'm not going to do that right now. But if you scroll down, you can actually see the lifestyle. So of this audience, this is the type of stuff that they like. So when it says brand affinity and other activities and purchase behavior, this gives you a better idea of what they're interested in. So country ways, outward bound, country single, country comfort, rural parents, trucking and style, and so forth. So by just looking at this, this tells me that this type of person is most likely in the country. Rural, in the country, and so forth. So you're kind of getting a better idea of what this person is like. You see? Scroll it down. Relationship status, 64% married. So they're mostly married. They mostly have at least some sort of college. So it looks to me like they're well educated. And as we scroll down here, so as you can see, if they're well educated, the words that you use might be different from somebody who, you know, has more education or less. So that gives you a better idea of how you can kind of organize what it's going to look like in your head in terms of your video sales letter. So in terms of jobs, what kind of jobs do they hold? So farming, fishery, forestry, nursing, transportation and moving, administrative cleaning, community social services, and so forth. So a lot of forestry, a lot of fishing, a lot of country type feel. So we scroll back up here, we click on page likes. And this gives you a better view of the pages that they're liking. So if you can get an idea of where they're hanging out, where they're going to, this can help you in terms of marketing as well. So as we can see here, a lot of garden, a lot of cooking, a lot of seeding, greenhouse, hydroponics, vegetable garden, garden design, gardening club, and so forth. So these might give you some ideas about, you know, even your product. How can you expand on it and maybe offer something related over here? We've got page likes, and of course, location, where they're located, activity, and you can kind of get an idea of the interaction. So how do they interact with the pages? Page likes, comments, post likes. They don't do a lot of shares and promotions redeemed, but they do click a lot of ads. So that might give you an idea if you want to do Facebook ads later down the road. But right now we're just gathering information and trying to figure out who this type of person is. So click on household. And we're unable to see the household income or how much they actually make. That's fine, we can figure that out later. Household size, how many kids they have, home market value. Sometimes they have it, sometimes they don't. We can see the spending methods. And of course, last, we have purchase. And you can get an idea of their spending habits, their retail spending, their online purchases. So if you don't see a lot of online purchases, maybe that means that there's not a lot of market there. So you really won't know unless you actually try though. But this just gives you kind of a forecast of the future. We got purchase behavior. So what exactly do they buy? That tells you a lot. And there we go. So as you can see, Facebook Audience Insights is really, really powerful in itself. So as a free tool. Now let's move on to Alexa.com. And if I go back over to here, we have greenhousemegastore.com. So what I recommend that you do is just go through the list of top 10 or top 20 or 30 and try to compile a list of websites that are very popular or that are getting top rankings, and only pick and choose the websites that actually deal with that area. If it's something like Amazon or Home Depot or something like too general, do not write that down. You only want something very specific. When you do that, so we'll do that now. We'll just type that in here. This one here. And we got greenhousekit.com. And we can even look over here. We have gardeners.com. So gardeners.com may be too general. We want something specific. Greenhousestore.com might be good. So we'll jot that down. I don't want to click the ad because that person's going to have to pay money. So I'm just going to enter that over here. And we could even go over to the shop on Google and figure out places that are actually selling. That's another little tip. If you can find websites that are actually selling things, you can figure out the exact buyer for that market. Okay, so I've compiled these three, and the reason why you want to compile a few is because you kind of want to compare the data that you're getting. So you want to go to Alexa.com, that's Alexa.com. This is a company that is owned by Amazon, and it's been around for a long, long time. And if you recall, this tool used to be free, and they used to provide a lot of statistics for free, but it is a paid subscription now. So I'm paying about, I think it's $49 a month or $47. I think it's $49, but it's not a lot of money. And if you can figure out exactly who you're talking to, then $49 is not going to be a lot of money, much less because you're going to make that back, especially if you target the right person. If you don't use these tools and you target the wrong person, then you're going to have to start back in square one, or you're going to be like, why does this not convert? All right, so enough of that talk. What you need to do is simply copy and paste the URLs here. Click go. Okay, so I went ahead and did that for these three sites. Now, I want to note that don't get discouraged if you don't see any data. Just keep moving forward and plugging away. And don't spend too much time on this. You only need certain data. So if you go down here, we can see the demographics. There's not a lot of data. That's fine. So we're just going to keep scrolling down. We can get an idea of the popular keywords. So there's different types of greenhouses, as we can see here. So we're going to move on to the next website. And the next one is greenhousekit.com. There's not a lot of demographics. That's fine. But as we plug away, the next one is greenhousemegastore.com. And we can see that we actually have the demographics. So what I would do is, as I would plug away, find as many sites as I can until I get at least two or three audience demographics of different websites. And the reason why I want to do that is I want to compare to make sure that there is a pattern that exists. So for example, if I see one website that is a lot of female and the other website that's a lot of male, then what I need to do is look at those sites and really dig deep, because what I'm trying to figure out is, are all the greenhouse kits or greenhouse websites mainly female? If that's the case, it's going to be easier. So as you can see here, the greenhousemegastore.com is mostly female. So I'm going to jot that down. So I'm going to remove these and we're going to say female. And then down here, it looks like the main number is 45 to 54. And then of course, 55 to 64. Next, we have, do they have children? It says no. That means that age group tends to be the kids are out of the house. So that doesn't always mean that they have children or they don't have children. Now, let's see here. Over here we have education. It looks like the majority of them either have no college or some college. So it seems to me like the majority is some college. So I'm going to write that down. And I'm also going to put no college and write the word minor because it's not the majority. And then of course the next thing we have is income. And it looks to me like the majority is this one and this one. But it's leaning more towards the 60K to 100K. And generally speaking, people who buy greenhouse kits most likely have a lot of money. Not all the time, but as you can see, that kind of confirms it. And then of course we have home, browsing location. They're mostly at home. And the fact that there's not as much at work tells me that they might run businesses or they could be stay-at-home moms or homemakers and so forth. So what I'm trying to do as I do this is I'm trying to figure out exactly what that person looks like. So as we can see, it says majority African American or Caucasian. Looks like majority Caucasian. So as I write this, female, 45 to 64, kids are out of the house, no college or some college, 60 to 100,000 or less, home, and Caucasian. So by doing that, you start to visualize exactly who you're trying to reach out to. Think about somebody that you might know that fits that. Think about what they like, what they don't like, their livelihood, the things that they face in life, and things like that. So it gives you a better view of who you're talking to. So, and that's why I definitely recommend Alexa.com. Even though it's paid, try it out for a month and just do your research, and you can always cancel. So I hope you enjoyed that. I know it was a little long, but this is definitely crucial, and it's going to make your life a lot easier in the long run. So let's move on to the next video. Hello and welcome back. This is video number 3. And this video is going to be a really quick exercise to figure out what is your audience's pain. Basically, what are their problems? What keeps them up at night? Because you really need to know this, because this is going to be what drives them. If you know what drives them, you can figure out how to solve that, how to solve their pain, and how your product and service actually relates to their pain. To do this, what you're going to need to do is do some research. You basically want to figure out what are their frequently asked questions. Then you need to figure out how does their frequently asked question or their pain actually relate to your product. Now, you can find these questions in Google. You're going to have to do a little bit of research. So you're going to go to forums. You can go to Yahoo Answers. There are many, many different types of search engines that are surrounding answers, like Yahoo Answers and Answers.com and other things like that. Really what we're trying to figure out are the most common and frequently asked questions that people are asking. So answer type sites. Let me hop on over to Google and let's do some research. Okay, so there are 2 different ways of going about doing this. The first way is, of course, digging up frequently asked questions, things that people are asking on forums, and things like that. The second way of doing this is simply by going to websites that are selling whatever you're trying to sell, like competitors, and most likely they're going to have a list of frequently asked questions. Now, you don't want to just right off the bat take the frequently asked questions that they've written. You kind of want to look at several sites and compare, let's say for example, the top 5, and compare them and see what actual common questions are being asked on those 5 different sites. So let's say, for example, that each site has roughly about 10 or 12 different frequently asked questions. In comparison to all those 5 together, which common questions actually are reappearing? So that can definitely help you out because they've already done the research. Now, the reason why I say do these 2 different ways is because that way you really figure out what are the frequently asked questions, because it can change over time, and over the years different questions will change simply because the industry changes, your market changes, and you kind of want to keep up with what is the main question. And most of the time it'll stay the same, but sometimes it'll change. So what I like to do is I like to go to google.com and I'll type in, for example, this case again, greenhouse kit FAQ, and I'll look at the top sites. So right now we have, it looks like Sturdy Built Greenhouses. Amazon.com is another good place to go to, and I would specifically look at their reviews. So let's do that first. Let's look at specific sites and kind of compare the FAQs. And it would be better if you can find websites that are actually selling what you're trying to sell. So in this case, selling greenhouse kits. So looking at this, I can tell that this is not just a website that's selling a bunch of gardening stuff, it's selling greenhouses. So the FAQ here is, what is the difference between a greenhouse and a solarium? Where should I locate the greenhouse? How will snow affect my greenhouse? And stuff like that. And then I move on to the next website, which, as we can see here, got residential greenhouses, which is what I want. And there we go. And let's see if they have an FAQ somewhere. They might not, they may. Really depends. So right off the bat, it doesn't look like they have one. So if I go over to here, sometimes if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you can find them. Sometimes not. Okay, technical FAQ. Okay, good. Description of different types of greenhouse structures and stuff like that. So I would basically open up these FAQs and I would just go to the next website until I found all the FAQs. I would line them up. So let's see here. Most of these are not related to greenhouse, they're just related to the company. Okay, so what I would do first is I would compare the main different sites that are related to greenhouses. And I would look at the FAQs and see what questions are actually popping up that match that of these other sites. So you see where I'm going with this? I'm trying to find some patterns here. Repeating patterns, repeating similarities are key, because that tells me that that is one of the more common questions across the board. So that's the first technique that I would use. The second technique that I would use is simply by going to Google, going to forums. I would type in the keyword, and then I would type in forum, and then I would try to find forums that are talking about this particular product or service, so I can get an idea of what their pains are. Sometimes you can do something like put the keyword or keyword phrase in quotations, and you can put a word like bad, stinks. The whole point of this is to figure out if you can find complaints, if you can find bad reviews. Complaints is really where the pain is. I mean, FAQs definitely help, but pains can be good too, because that'll tell you what's their driving motivation. What's the emotional element in the back of the motivation that is pushing them and driving them to do what they're doing. Basically all the synonyms of bad and horrible. So for example, this person here, let's see, they have one review which is negative. And it might be negative about the greenhouse kit, but a lot of times these will go across the board and tell you the repeating problems that people are having, which drives them to ask the same question, which we'll answer while we're creating the video sales letter. Why should I buy from you? Or this hasn't worked before. Why should I buy from you? And that's, if you have the answer to that question, then you're going to be ahead of most of your competition. So what I would do next is I would go to answer sites like Yahoo Answers, and I would type in the keyword greenhouse kits. And what I like about Yahoo Answers is while you're typing it, it's kind of like Google. It'll tell you the questions that actually show up. But in this case, it is more so questions. So what is the best greenhouse kit to buy? It's pretty general. Question about greenhouse kits. Greenhouse kits, are they good buys? I want to purchase a greenhouse kit. Which one would you recommend? Now, these are common questions, but you really need to figure out is how do these questions actually relate to your product and service? So if I do a quick search on this, I can start looking through here and get an idea of what common questions people have and how I can relate that to my product or service. Another thing I would do is I would go to Amazon. Amazon is a great place to go. We can type in greenhouse kits. And it's okay to look at the positive reviews, but what I would really do is focus in on the negatives. So for example, I would pick and choose a competing product or service that relates specifically to what I'm selling, because I want to get a read on what people are thinking. And generally speaking, I don't really read the positives, I read the negatives. So we got 10 negatives on this. What I'm trying to figure out is what are the patterns of complaints? What are the similar complaints? I'm not really looking for people who complain to complain. I'm looking for people who complain, like let's say for example, this person here says something that's very similar to this person here. And this person here is saying something very similar to this person here. So what I'm looking for is a pattern of negative complaints, of common questions, and things like that. Once you do that, just go ahead and jot that down and try to figure out what is the emotion behind the motivation that is pushing them forward. All right. So go ahead and do that exercise. This is really going to help you when you create your video sales letter. Once you get past this, everything else will be easier. All right. All right. So this is video number 4, common buyer objections and resistance. So this part is crucial. Once you understand this, then you really can apply this to all different niches across the board. So this is not very just specific to one niche. It's specific to all niches. And this is going to help you sell better when it comes to your video sales letters and even sales letters. All right, first things first, let's talk about resistance. Your prospect is ready to put his or her guard up at any time. If you think about when you're talking to somebody, even if you're not trying to sell them something, you're trying to convince them of something. You know, most of the time, they're ready to put their guard up and become skeptical about whatever you're trying to convince them of, right? If you think of those times that you've had that, there are reasons why they're ready to put their guard up, and that is because they've been burned before. You don't really know what kind of experience that they have had before. They may have had a negative experience before, they haven't had any positive experiences, and maybe you are their first positive experience. So with that in mind, it's going to help you sell better, because you're going to be able to provide value. You're going to be able to gain trust from them. By understanding these objections and resistance, you'll be able to put a lot of these into your video sales letter, and therefore lower their guard and gain their trust. So buying resistance across niches and markets are very, very similar. They don't really change. They are very similar. So you can use this over and over again once you've learned it. But knowing them and applying them to your products and services will allow you to integrate them into your video sales letter. All right, so let's talk about common resistance, their thoughts behind that resistance, and options and responses that you can take. One common resistance or objection that a lot of people have is they're thinking, well, you don't understand what I'm going through. They're going through something. Maybe the thought behind that is they feel all alone in their pain or problem. And who knows that they may have felt this way for a while, and no one just gets it. Maybe they've been through a health problem, and they've been through doctors and people just don't get it because they're in this excruciating pain. People don't understand where they're coming from. Other people on the outside, think they're crazy because it's in their head or whatever. It doesn't have to be a health pain. It can be a physical pain. It can be a mental, urge or anything. The point of what I'm trying to say is that at the end of the day, many of these people feel like they're all alone. So your response to that is this: tell your story and relate to them. Tell them that you know their pain. You've been in their shoes. You know their pain. You've been there. You've done that. But you got out. So the difference is that you got out, right? So if you really know what is the pain and you've done the research that we talked about in the previous video, then at this point in time, you should understand how to relate to them. And of course, if you have a story and you can relate to them, that's actually more powerful than many other things. All right? So the second common resistance is, who are you to tell me anything? I just don't believe you. All right, so that's common. I mean, we've all probably thought that in our heads. And the reason why is because you're really thinking, well, you don't understand what I'm going through. And then when you tell them, okay, I've been there, I've done that, it's like, okay, I trust you a little bit, but not all the way. Their eyes are still slightly shut. Their ears are open and they're listening, but they're not yet convinced. They want to know, how are you qualified to teach them and help them get out of their pain? So obviously your response could be your credentials, your background, your history, what you've been through, and things like that. Your history, your background, your credentials are very important. So if you have a degree in some area that applies to that, or you have experience, or you have a background in that area, or something to say, hey, I've been there and here's why. Another common resistance is, well, I can get this later on. And that's true. A lot of times people are thinking, I'm really busy in my life. I can get this later. But then there is no later because they just forget about it. And we've all been there and done that too, right? So the thought is, it's urgent, I can do this later, but they forget about it. The response is, you might want to use some scarcity, like limited quantity, countdown timer, limited time to get this and access it. Or it could be a price jump, early bird discount pricing, price jump after that, and after a certain amount of period. Another common resistance is, bah, this isn't going to work for me. It never does. Now this kind of goes back to the first pain that I talked about earlier, and talks about, okay, they've been burned before, they've tried and tried and tried, it didn't work before, why should it work now? And the response in this case can be social proof and testimonials, especially from people who were in their very same skeptical shoes. Now, as you know, before you actually buy a product and service, generally in your head you're thinking, well, I've been burned before, or I've gotten this product or similar product and it just never worked for me. Why should it work for me now? So if you can find social proof and testimonials from people who were skeptical but now they're not, that's actually more powerful than a testimonial just saying, hey, this is a great product. Because most people are in that mindset. They're in that mindset of, I'm skeptical now, I'm open to you to convince me otherwise, but I'm still skeptical. You can if you can get some testimonials or social proof that says, I didn't believe in this because blah, 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 but now I do. That's really, really powerful. And that could be your response. All right, so we're almost done here. This is going to be, we're almost done, close to the last slide. And the other common resistance can be, what if this doesn't work out? So this is kind of at the end of your video sales letter. What if this doesn't work out? And I mean, you can voice these questions if you would like to. You can use these in your video sales letter. What if it doesn't work out? The thoughts behind that is, what if something happens? It doesn't work for me, or it's not compatible for me, or, you know, whatever. The response is a money back guarantee. Now, oftentimes what we found through testing is the longer the money back guarantee, the better, and it just removes fear. So sometimes if you do something like a crazy 1-year money back guarantee, what we found is most people they don't ask for the money back guarantee because they tend to forget about it, or they're like, okay, you must believe in your product so much you're willing to give a 1-year money back guarantee. And you will have some people that will wait to the end of the year, but for the majority of part, I mean, you probably will decrease your refund rate. Now, that applies to a good product. If the product is bad, buggy, has problems and stuff like that, you may have a higher refund rate. So you won't know until you test it out. All right, so the next one is, well, I can't pay for this now. They really, really want it, but they can't pay for it. So thoughts behind that is, I'd like this, but I live paycheck to paycheck, or I'm low on cash. How can I pay for this? The easy response to that is simply by offering payment plans. Break up the high ticket item or whatever it costs, break it up and charge a payment plan. Oftentimes the payment plan will actually, when combined together, will cost more than the actual item itself. But people are willing to do that because it removes some risk. And so instead of paying it all up front, they can pay with a payment plan, and you can actually increase your conversions that way. So that's it. Let's move on to the next video, and we're going to start the video sales letter formula. First thing, part 1 is the next 3 videos, and I'm basically going to go over the template that you can follow so you can write out your sales letter. And then to make it a hybrid, we are actually going to combine technology, and I'll show you what you need to do in certain situations and things like that to make it a smart video sales letter. All right, let's move on in the next video. Welcome to video number 5, the video sales letter formula. We're going to be covering the formula in video 5, 6, and 7. And I want to say that there are 2 parts of the hybrid sales letter video. Part 1, we're going to be covering the written process. And then part 2, I'm going to talk about the technology so that you understand where you can go to get such as whiteboard videos, Prezi videos done, different types of technologies that are available to you other than the basic PowerPoint, black and white video sales letter. But before we can get to that point, we have to finish part 1, which is video 5, 6, and 7. Once you have that written video sales letter in hand, it's just going to make your life a lot easier. All right. So moving on, the first thing I want you to do before we actually get into the written process is by defining the enemy. You have to define the enemy. You got to define the person or in a common enemy. And then you are defined as the hero or the person who has been in their shoes, been there, done that. You've encountered the enemy and you've overcome the enemy. Now, let me explain what I mean by the enemy. If you think about movies and story plots and things that are very intriguing, there's always a hero and there's always an enemy. So let me give you an example. Patient versus doctor, debtor versus bank, or debtor versus creditor. So let's say, for example, we have some sort of health related product. And if you're aware, there's certain diseases that, certain doctors that are like, okay, there's no cure for a certain ailment. But there is, not in the pharmaceutical world, but perhaps there are some sort of vitamins or supplements that actually helped, but there's really no statistical data that the doctor looks at and says, okay, this is okay. In this case, the doctor is the enemy because let's say, for example, that you have a health product that actually helps resolve this ailment. It's not a pharmaceutical thing, so the FDA hasn't necessarily approved of it, but it works. So let's say, for example, IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. Most of the times, the doctors say there's no cure. There's nothing you can really do about it. There are some pharmaceutical drugs out there for that, but they might not work. And plus, they have side effects. So in this case, the enemy is the doctor or the pharmaceutical company. And then the patient is your audience. So whenever you're writing, for example, a headline, when you're grabbing the attention, which is the first thing you need to do, you have seconds to grab somebody's attention. So what you do is you need a headline and a subheadline to back it up. And you can do something as an example like discover how to maintain your irritable bowel syndrome, pain level, stuff like that. Because if you're not aware of irritable bowel syndrome, basically whatever you eat, certain foods trigger really bad, painful symptoms. So in this case, you could say what the doctors don't want you to know about blah, blah, my product or service, which will lessen your irritable bowel syndrome. So you see where I'm going with this? That's why you need the common enemy. Or let's say, for example, you got a debtor versus a creditor. What the creditor doesn't want you to know about paying back your debts. So you see, you got the common enemy. The patient or the prospect is your audience. And you are the hero. You are the person who has been in their shoes. You have figured out some sort of way out, and you are no longer in pain. So that's where it is. The first thing is to grab attention and then integrate the common enemy in there. And the second thing is to identify the problem. So obviously the problem in this case is irritable bowel syndrome, the pain of it, the side effects and things like that. So remember, their objection is probably going to be, well, why should I be listening to you? You're not a doctor. You're obviously saying, doctors don't want you to know this, but why should I listen to you? Well, that's when you can bring in your story and you can be clear about the problem. So you want to be clear about the problem. You want to say, hey, this is a problem. I've been there, I've done that. I've gone through the same pain level that you have gone. And then, of course, you can address those pains. So remember video 3, we talked about a lot about FAQs and pains and stuff like that. That's when you take that information you've done and bring it into here. So if you've already done that, this is where you can bring a list of those FAQ questions. So in relation to irritable bowel syndrome, for example, we can say something like, the problem with irritable bowel syndrome, there are many different types, and there are many different trigger foods. So let's say, for example, that the common questions that we received or we found were stuff like, what are trigger foods to IBS? Or what does work? What lessens pain? And things like that. So you basically want to agitate the pain level up by focusing on the emotion behind the pain, which the emotion behind the pain with IBS is that you're frustrated. You're so frustrated to the point that you've seen doctors. The doctors are like, we can't really do anything because there is really no cure to IBS. And the emotion behind the pain is frustration. They're frustrated. They're tired of being sick. They're tired of doctors. They probably don't like doctors at this point. So that's why that's the common enemy. And then the emotion behind the motivation is that, of course, they want to lessen their pain. Now, with IBS, I'm familiar with it because I know somebody who actually has it. But I know that it's so frustrating. A lot of times after eating, they could be in bed in pain or walking around, not sleeping, and things like that. So when I say agitate the pain level up, I mean focus on where their pain is. So the pain is causing them not to sleep, causing them to increase their stress level, which also impacts their work, their job, their benefits and things like that. So it's more than just, oh, you're having IBS pain. It's more than that. It's the deep emotion behind the motivation of them watching your video sales letter and trying to figure out how your product and service can help them. So it's deeper. If you can figure out the deep reasons why they're really in pain and how that affects them in life, that's going to help you. And then, of course, you can provide the solution. You can take a list of the FAQ questions, rewrite them as they apply to your business. And then, of course, you can offer them the solution, which in this case is going to be your product and service. So, for example, let's say, for example, that your solution is some sort of diet plan for irritable IBS type irritable bowel syndrome patients that will help them. And it's an ongoing process that will help them lower their pain. And let's say a frequently asked question is, what kind of foods should you avoid? You can rewrite it so that it applies to your business. You see what I'm saying here? Then you can introduce your product or service. And then after that, let's move on to the next video. Okay, so in continuation of the video sales letter formula, this is going to be video number 6. And we're going to cover a crucial question that everybody is going to ask. And that is, what's in it for me? And why should I believe in you? So at this point, you've already introduced your product and service. And now people are asking, well, why should I believe you? I'm a little bit interested in your product and service and how it can decrease my pain level or decrease something or help my problem or solve my problem. Why should I believe in you? So obviously you need to prove that through credential. Now you can back up your claims with the following, just to give you some examples. And these are just a few of many. So you can have credentials, your background, your history, your experience. Maybe you're not really somebody who has rewards or recognition or anything like that, but you have been in their shoes. So experience is important as well, because that tells them that you have been in their shoes. Even if you have credentials, if you haven't been through the walk that's similar to them and you haven't walked the walk and talked the talk, then they might be reluctant. So it really comes down to your audience. So awards can help, recognitions can help, case studies, which is my favorite, and of course statistics, which is also my favorite. I like to include as many statistics as possible just to show them the benefits that my product and service can provide, and case studies as well, because case studies show that you're in their shoes, definitely, and you've tried it and maybe you've had some sort of success. And that brings us to benefits. Benefits, not to be confused with features. So the features of a product, let's say for example, a piece of software. Software might have a feature of, well, it's easy to use. It has this feature, it has this thing that does something. So that's not the benefits. The benefits are the end results of using your product and service. So for example, if you use this software, it will do this for you. It will help you have more time because it'll speed up the process, and you can use that time to spend with your family, your kids, your friends, and so forth. So that's what the benefits would be. If you buy this product, it will do this for you. It will help you make more money. It'll help you become more healthy. It will decrease your pain so that you can live your life, blah, blah, blah. So this goes beyond just using the product. This goes beyond into their life. So if you know your demographics of your audience and who they are, their pain levels and everything like that, it's going to be easier for you, right? So let me give you some common benefits from desires that you can use in your own video sales letter. To become good looking, have more money, better health, more popular and famous, more secure or more protection, inner peace and confidence, more time to do what they want, and more time to do what they enjoy, and they can enjoy their time or have more fun and things like that. So by using this piece of software, for example, it'll save you time to allow you to do what you want. And by doing what you want and doing things that are non-stressful, you will most likely have better health, because stress can impact health negatively and by doing that and that. So you see where I'm going. I'm creating some benefits or end results by looking at this list and coming up with them. So as you're going through your video sales letter and you're writing it up, I would highly recommend you just to look through this list and just come up with the end results of using your software, you're going through your video course, or using your product and service, whatever that might be, consulting, coaching. You know, if you go through my coaching, you'll be able to have more time instead of trying to figure it out, because I've been there, I've done that, I've gone through the hardships so that you don't have to, kind of thing. And then of course, after that, you want to give social proof and testimonials. Not just any testimonials or social proof, but specifics. Now, let me explain. First, you want to jot down your prospects' skeptics, like what they're skeptical about, why they may not buy from you. And it might be good to interview your client, interview your customer, sit down with them and figure out what were the things that they were skeptical before they purchased your product and service. And then you want to find testimonials for the main ones. So using testimonials from former skeptics are actually better than the, oh, this is awesome, this is a great product kind of thing. It's actually better to have that. And having testimonials that say something like, well, to be honest, when I looked at your product and service, I thought it wouldn't work. I thought it wouldn't help me. I was really skeptical because I was burned before, but I decided to bite the bullet. I decided to try out your product and service. I gave it a try. I was reluctant in the beginning, but you turned me from a reluctant person to a believer. So that would be a great testimonial if you can find that. So obviously you want to make sure that is legitimate, it's something along those lines, and you're good to go. So with that said, let's move on to the video number 7, and that'll be the last video in the video sales letter formula. And then we'll move on to the technology parts later on. All right, we'll see you on the next video. So let's talk about your pitch, which is video number 7. At this point in time, we're going to talk about your offer. This is crucial because this is the defining point whether or not they will buy your product or service. So the first thing we need to talk about is your offer. You want your prospect, regardless of the situation that they are in, to think, well, I have to have this offer, and I won't achieve this benefit, whatever benefit that is, free time or health, no pain, unless I do so. And you want to introduce your offer and how it differs from your competitors. So if you haven't done basic competitor research, I would highly recommend that you do so. Look at your competitors, see what they're doing, see what they're not doing, and then look at your offer and see what you're doing and what you're not doing. The next thing you'll want to do is inject scarcity. What I mean by scarcity is this. When you offer your product or service, you want to get people to act now. Now, the problem is most people think, well, I can do this later. Why do I have to do it now? If you think about the Black Friday sales that happen on the end of November after Thanksgiving, especially in the United States, you've probably heard of Black Friday sales or Cyber Monday sales, which is the Monday after Black Friday, which is global. But Black Friday sales, what happens is these stores all across the nation will generally mark down their prices so much that it creates a frenzy. Now, you don't see that frenzy every day, do you? You see that frenzy only on those special days, or even after Christmas sales and so forth. And the reason being is because these companies are using scarcity to their advantage. So you want to do the same because you realize that if you don't, people are going to simply leave and think, well, I can do this later. I don't really need to act now. But you really know what happens after they leave, right? They generally never come back. And it's not because they don't want your product. A lot of times it's because they have busy lives and they just forget about it. Even think about yourself. I know I've had that same problem too. And I'm reminded maybe a year or a few years later and think, wow, okay, I could have done that last time. So you got to get people to act now. The way that you do this are the following. You can offer limited quantity or limited copies of whatever you're trying to sell. So if it's a product, that's great. If it's a service, maybe you can offer a certain quantity of consulting or coaching or whatever type of service that you're providing. And then next we have time limited discounts. And you could say for the next 7 days, this product, which is normally $97, is 50% off for $50 or $47. But once 7 days passes, it's going to jump back to 97, and it might increase after that. Price increase, like we talked about earlier. Okay, for the first 7 days, it's going to be $10. Second set of days is going to be $20. And we'll eventually increase it and increase it. What that does is it creates a sense of scarcity. People want in at a cheap rate or a limited quantity. People have to get it no matter the price because there's a limited quantity. They have to act now. If you don't really have scarcity, then people are not really going to pay attention as carefully. Then you have your money back guarantee, which is basically removes fear. The reason behind this is because if there is no guarantee, then somebody buys your product, they're thinking in their minds, well, what if I get burned? What if it doesn't work? What if it's not compatible to me and it just doesn't work? Should I buy it or should I not? So by offering a money-back guarantee, you remove fear. So the money-back guarantee also tells people that you stand behind your product. You stand behind your product enough that you're willing to give a money-back guarantee. And of course, the reality of this is you're going to have people that take advantage of you, and they're going to wait to the last day, last 30th day or last 60th day, or even the last 365 days. You're always going to have people, but they're the minority. And the reason why I tell you this is because I don't want you to become discouraged. And basically what I've found over the years through testing is that the longer the guarantees are, this actually removes fear and refunds in general. So we tested out a 1-year guarantee out of about 500 people that were buying high ticket items. Only about 2 people waited until the last minute. They waited until the last minute and they said, hey, can I get a refund? We gave them the refund, but the majority of the time, most people did not take refunds. Either they forgot about it or they thought, well, this offer was really good. I tried it out. I really liked it. Now, this applies to assuming that your offer is good. If your offer is lousy and has lots of problems or things like that, it's just not being taken care of, guarantees that are longer can actually backfire. So I just want to say that out loud because, and I'm not pointing any fingers, I've had the same issues before. So longer guarantees remove fear and refunds in general, as long as your offer is good. Then of course the next thing is your call to action. Don't assume that people know what to do next. And by assuming that, you can actually lower your conversion rate. Because people, even though they might know, they need you to tell them. So people need to know exactly what to do next, step by step, exactly in specifics, and also give them a forecast of what is to come and try to be as transparent as possible. Don't tell them every single thing, but tell them a little bit to build curiosity and so forth. And then of course, give your last warning, which is reminding them about the scarcity. And another thing you can do is stack on exclusive bonuses to increase the value of the product. So at this point in time, people are going to try to justify the price, the product in their minds. If you stack on more exclusive bonuses that are actually related to the product itself, this will increase the value, and this will allow you to say, hey, the original product cost that much and it's worth it, but I believe in this so much that I'm going to add even more bonuses and increase the value further on. So that makes it more worthwhile. And of course, you have your reminder, which is do a quick recap overview of the pitch itself. Because not everybody is going to have gotten your pitch the first time. So do a quick overview. State scarcity, state the bonuses, the additional value, and of course, the call to action. So now that we have gone over the written process of the video sales letter formula, now it's time to talk about technology and how you can get people to take what you've written in as far as the written process and turn it into a professional video sales letter. All right, let's move on. All right, so congratulations, you finished part 1 of the hybrid video sales letter. This is part 2, which is video number 8, and we're going to be talking about the technology and video conversions bump. Basically, bumping your conversions up by using technology. So now that you have the video sales letter, of course, the written part, it's easy to take that and turn it into a video sales letter in terms of different types of videos like cartoons, whiteboard sales videos. You've probably seen a lot of those, and many of those convert really, really well. It just really depends on your product. And in the next video after this, I'm going to show you different times where you should use screen capture video. Sometimes I just use screen capture video and that's it. But it really depends on you and your product and service as to what you should be using. So I'm going to share with you different routes that you can take in terms of the services and the software that you can use to create these types of videos. And of course, the process of going about doing that. So let's move on and let's go ahead and do that right now. Okay, so before I actually jump in and show you what kind of tools that you can use to create whiteboard videos, to create cartoon videos, and so forth, the first thing that I typically do is I take the sales letter that I have written, as you can see here, and what I do is I go through and I highlight key words that really need to be emphasized. Now, when I go through here, announcing a brand new 9-part video course, I'll highlight it, and if it's an image or it's something that I need to do on the screen, like a whiteboard screen, I'll put in parentheses the image name and or scene. So essentially what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a storyboard so that when we hand this off to somebody else to create the videos, or we do it ourselves, we know exactly what needs to happen when. So are we going to use this as a word, or are we going to use an image to signify what we are saying as we're saying it on the sales letter script itself? So that's what I first do. I go through the whole sales letter, as you can see here, and I bold the words that are important and that need to be emphasized. Once you do that, then you can hand it off either to do it yourself, or you can hand it off to somebody else that would do it for you. And that way they know, okay, for this word here, when you say this word here, a specific image needs to show up, or a specific scene needs to be produced. Let's say, for example, that as you're talking, this statistic here is being created as a scene in your cartoon video or in your whiteboard video. So what I would do is I would highlight this and put in parentheses what exactly that scene should look like. Does that make sense? That makes your life a lot easier rather than just jumping on in, trying to set up the whiteboard video or cartoon video or even a screen capture video. This just makes your life a lot easier. All right, so moving on, let's talk about the software tools that you can use in application to the written sales letter. You can either do it yourself or you can hire somebody. But my recommendation, as somebody who has done this before, I generally outsource this process because it's a very, very tedious process. And if you're not familiar with doing it, the end results and the quality that is being produced may not be as good of a quality compared to somebody else who actually knows how to do this. Besides screen capture video using Camtasia, there are 3 different tools that I personally use and would recommend. The first one allows you to create whiteboard videos, and it's called Sparkle, and it's created by VideoScribe. And if you go to videoscribe.co, that's videoscribe.co, you will get this page. And it is a paid product. You can start their free 7-day trial, check it out for yourself. But basically the way that VideoScribe works is allows you to pull in like images, text, and stuff like that, and you'll see a hand and whiteboard basically drawn out on a whiteboard. So technology is powerful, but unless you have the written sales letter and all that done, then none of this would actually make sense to do. So VideoScribe is definitely the #1 tool for whiteboarding in terms of sales videos. And what I found over the years is what works better is if you mix and match it. So if you have a whiteboard video and mixed in with PowerPoint, mixed in with Keynote, or even mixed in with ScreenCapture, it just makes it more interesting because you have different kind of camera angles and stuff like that, different mediums in a video. Makes it interesting and appealing and so forth. So that's VideoScribe. The second tool that I would recommend if you want to go the cartoon route is Powtoon. If you go to Powtoon, powtoon.com, you can easily create these really cool videos that are cartoon-based videos. Now you'll notice a lot of big companies tend to use these types of videos. Now you need to know your audience, but for the most part, whiteboard videos and cartoon videos convert like crazy, mainly because cartoon videos really take somebody's guard down because they feel like they're watching a cartoon. Or whiteboard videos, when they're watching it, it reminds them of the days that they were in college or the days that they were in high school and so forth. It doesn't really feel like somebody is really selling to them. And that's why with the hybrid video sales letter and applying whiteboard videos, the whiteboard technology, the cartoon technology, that can really bump up your sales. So if we go to powtoon.com, you can actually get an idea of what it looks like. So you can create animated videos and presentations. And if you click on play here, you can actually get an idea of what this looks like. So you can use graphs, you can do a lot of different things. And what this does is it helps reach the visual and kinesthetic audiences. Not just the auditory audiences, but the visual and kinesthetic audiences. All right, so there are many different cartoon services out there and whiteboard video services out there, but I personally have used these. So VideoScribe is good, Powtoon is great, and another one, the third one, this is great for presentations. If you want something that is a little bit more interactive than PowerPoint, then this is a way to go. Prezi is really easy to use. They have a lot of templates that you can just plug and play and use them. But this just basically just makes things a little bit more interesting and interactive. So I use those 3 tools myself, and with Prezi, and then of course here, what I recommend is you hand these 3 tools over to somebody else who knows it. So that way you can focus on your business, you can focus on marketing your business, and more. What I found over the years is most people want to do it themselves, and that's fine. But you end up spending, weeks or even months on this that you haven't actually made any money because you're still trying to figure out this yourself. So I've been in those shoes before, and I'm just telling you like it is, that it's probably better to outsource it. Now, if you do go outsource it, if you go to videohive.net, as you can see here, videohive.net, you can actually get elements that can be used within the video sales letter. So you can get more animations, things that you can use to make things interesting in your video sales letter. So I would just go here and browse around. The next thing I would personally do is I would go to odesk.com. You can go to elance.com, that's fine, or even guru.com. The purpose of going here is to find somebody who is already familiar with these tools that I just showed you, and it's familiar enough that they can take your video sales letter script and turn it into a appealing video sales letter using these technologies. And while I can do it myself, I'd rather somebody else do it, because through experience, you don't really make money by doing it yourself. You make more money by getting the video sales letter done ASAP, and then you start promoting it. That's the way you make money and build your business, build your nonprofit, get your word out. It takes a month or two to get your video sales letter done. If you're trying to do it yourself, then that's probably not the best way to go. So typically I go to odesk.com. You can type in here something like Powtoon. See if I can find somebody who is familiar with using Powtoon. So generally what I do is I choose 4.5 stars and above. Typically at least 1 hour. So that means that they have actual work and work being done on odesk.com. And then from this point, I just basically look at all these profiles and go from there. And pick and choose somebody who is actually familiar with Powtoon or with VideoScribe. And these tools have actually been out for many years. So there are many people out there who actually understand how to use it effectively. Powtoon is a little bit complicated. It's easy to use, but when I used it, it was just a little bit complicated. And I was like, well, I know how to use video. I know how to edit video. But is it really, as far as time and money and return on investment goes, is it really worth it to do it myself? I ended up hiring somebody, a couple $100, and then I made that money back because I spent the rest of the time promoting that video sales letter. Now, had I spent 2 months on it, I would have lost a lot of time, which ends up being money in the end. So if you can mix these technologies with your written sales letter, then you will actually increase your sales conversions. So hopefully that helps you. You were able to figure out the exact resources that I have used and highly recommend over the years. And in the next video, I'm going to talk about when you should use text and when you should use screen capture video. All right, let's move on. Congratulations, you've reached the end of this video series. This is the last video, video number 9, text versus screen capture. So the purpose of this video is to help increase your conversions further while saving you time. The question is, when should you use text only? When I say text only, I mean PowerPoint slides, text cartoons, text Prezi, or text whiteboard. And when should you use screen capture? When I say screen capture, what I mean by that is stuff like Camtasia videos where you can see the mouse moving around on the screen, kind of like what you're seeing now, and more. So screen capture video tends to be video that is much easier created than a cartoon or a whiteboard video. What I found over the years is that if you're doing a video sales letter and it's PowerPoint based, text based only, or even Prezi or whiteboard or even cartoon, the problem arises when you're trying to sell something that somebody wants to see an example of. Software is a good example. When it comes to software, if somebody is just watching a textual based video and they're unable to imagine what that looks like, or even if they can imagine, if they're unable to actually see what the software looks like in action, then you're actually hurting yourself and lowering your conversion rate. What ends up happening is because they can't see it, they're not going to buy it. So that's where screen capture video comes in. Nothing is more annoying than not showing something in action. So if you have a piece of software, you need to show it in action so that they can see what it looks like and how they can use it, and the benefits, of course, of using it. So that's when screen capture video is so crucial. Same goes with video courses. What I found over the years is that people want to see a demo of what the video quality looks like. They're not as concerned about the video sales letter. They're concerned about, are they going to be able to understand the instructor? Are you the instructor, or is somebody else the instructor? Do they have to, how do I get an idea of what that looks like, and so forth. If they're able to see just a little bit, a glimpse, then they'll be able to see the potential in your video course. If they're unable to see that, that's actually going to hurt your conversion rate. So when it comes to software, video courses, and things that people need to see, you need to use screen capture video, or you need to use live video to show them exactly what that looks like. So basically mix it up. What I found, instead of just using purely Prezi or purely PowerPoint slides or purely screen capture or purely whiteboard or cartoon, I found that actually mixing it up actually helps. So what you could do is you could do Prezi or PowerPoint in the beginning, and then you can jump in and show them the actual videos or the software or whatever you need to show later in the video. So think about movies and TV interviews. The movie and TV interview, they never ever stay on one medium or one angle at one time. They're always changing it up. So basically what we're trying to achieve is a very similar concept, that different camera angles change all the time, and thus different mediums are good. So mixing them up can actually help your conversions. But of course, you're never going to know unless you test it out. And that's why I say test it out. Try a pure PowerPoint slides. Try a mixture of different mediums. Now, what I have done, which I've been able to create screen capture video very, very fast, but test out pure screen capture video with PowerPoint slides. In my experience, those tend to be faster in terms of creation time, and sometimes they convert way, way better than just a pure Prezi presentation. So like I said, you will never know unless you test it out in the end. So I hope you enjoyed this video series. Please go back, review it, and take action. And don't really get hung up on doing it all yourself. Maybe the written part, but as far as the technology goes, really get in the mindset of outsourcing and delegating, because as a business owner, as a leader in your organization, if you delegate to somebody who knows it better, the quality is going to get better, and therefore your conversions are also going to get better as well. So thank you very much. Have a great day.